All right, chat. So AWS was down. The big cloud provider was actually down here. And let's just talk about what kind of happened here. Well, TLDR, right? Essentially, the US East 1 region was down, and it started around this morning, around 12 a.m., October 20th. And almost like, I would say maybe like 100 to 109 services were down to start off with. But what does this mean? Like, why was it down? Why was it a big issue? When we talk about like availability zones, we talk about multi-region type of things. Like, why did it affect some apps and why did it not affect others? Well, I kind of had this like little demonstration that I wanted to kind of elaborate on and understanding like why multi-region applications are important, right? And so essentially how it kind of works is, there's different kind of regions here. And let's call this like, I'm just gonna say like US East 1, right? Or whatever, which is the one that got affected, right? And in between these, there's different AZs is what they call them, right? And this could be US East 1A or whatever. And then you maybe have 1B and so on and so forth. So, you know, definitely having, an application be multi-AZ, absolutely, that's a given, right? But then what about having your application be multi-region, right? Not a lot of people do that, especially because costs, right? And so it's not only more tech debt, right, but also it costs more to do something like this, right? Because you have to essentially, in essence, really replicate your application or whatever across different regions, which can cost some money. And so you can have something like this, and then as a matter of fact, you can have another, whoa, what the heck? You can have another guy right here, and this is the East 2, right? And all these be East 2. And so you can see they're like essentially separate nodes, right? If you really think about it. So they're completely isolated. And so you're going to have to kind of replicate apps, which again, it's going to cost money. And so that's why there's certain people, certain companies that don't take this route. And uh, by all means, it's fair, right? It's a fair um, it's fair to do it, but then when it all hell breaks loose and you get the thing is if this guy goes down, right? If you get a big X on this guy, then you're kind of screwed, right? Because your app was only on this guy. And so that's what essentially happened. And you ran into a lot of issues. And so there was a lot of services that were down because of this reason. And so one of the biggest things that you can do to mitigate this is again, uh, put your app on, make your app cross region, right? And there's certain steps and AWS does. So it's not entirely AWS's fault for this because it's very isolated, right? Only one region was affected in this case, right? And it was really isolated from every other region. And apps that implemented multi-region um, uh, you know, if they supported it right, they really wouldn't be effective, right? Because essentially with one, config or env, you could easily switch from using US East 1 to go to US East 2. And Dave's Garage actually had a great example of something like this, which is it's not necessarily that hard. It's just kind of your penny pinching, and it becomes a problem when it actually breaks. And so he had a great take where it's like essentially if you're gonna try to keep something super robust, then just choose a Monday, try to break your app, try to break it in a bunch of different ways and see how it reacts to it, right? Now I get it, not everyone's building something that really is going to affect the global masses, right? But absolutely if you're building anything that is, needs some sort of security or some sort of it's in some sort of way can Im impede someone's life, in any way, right? And then yes, take these extra precautions, right? But yeah, that's essentially a TLDR of things, right? One of the regions went down, and they were kind of trying to get it back up, and they did get it back up pretty quickly, from what I understand. So yeah, there were some early signs of recovery, literally around 2 hours later. But the problem was DNS, right? So DNS caching, all that stuff played a big role in this, right? Because even though things were mitigated, DNS still was behind, or caching was behind. So, you know, things hadn't been updated. And I'm sure this is still going to kind of play out through a couple of days while, uh, TLL or whatever time you know, gets fixed there. So yeah, if you guys want to figure out the link, I'll put the link in the description so you guys can see everything and kind of the process of it. And so this is kind of cool to kind of go through and just try to understand there. But yeah, North Virginia was the one affected. All right, guys, thanks.